How are you doing? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, the founder of the highest paid part-time job in the world, options trading program. And what we're going to talk about really quickly is 3 steps to dominate the options market auction. This is going to be a really good video or audio for options traders, because what I'm going to talk about is how can you buy contracts, right, for less than what the actual ask price is. And you understand is that over time, you having this ability, it'll save you money on contracts as you start to scale out and start to trade bigger and bigger positions. These small savings, these per contract savings will start to turn into bigger savings. And also when you turn around and sell them, how can you sometimes sell a contract, right, above what the ask is, or sometimes above what the bid is or the last price sold. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So when you're looking at an options chain, you're going to have the ask price, the bid price, and the last price sold. And so what happens is that the market makers, essentially the people whose job it is to help create a market for that particular contract. So we got contract XYZ, right? Somebody will say, hey, I'm asking for this price of premium, which is how much you're going to pay for the contract. I'm asking for this price. So let's say their ask price is going to be $100. Somebody's bidding on that. So let's say somebody in that market is bidding on that contract because we're in an auction-based market. So let's say that they're bidding, let's say they're bidding 95. And then let's also say the last price, right, that somebody bought that contract for was 97. So we got a 100 ask, we got a bid of 95, and the last price sold was going to be the 97. Now the market is fluid. So that ask price, that bid price, and the last price sold can constantly be moving up or down, because we see if you're looking at your options chain, while the market is open, if that particular share price is moving very rapidly up or down, you can see those prices start to fluctuate, right? Because you're going to have a new ask price being set, a new bid being set, and then a last contract being sold. What I want you to understand is this. So we're going to talk about the first step. The first step is that you can just do what we call a market order. And what I mean by market order is that instead of worrying about the ask or the bid or the last price sold, you can put in an order to where when your order hits the floor, hits that particular brokerage, right? So we're using the floor as like this visualization of it hitting the trading floor. When your order hits the floor, but when it gets executed, whatever the price is at that particular time, it's going to sell for it. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to ensure that you get in and not have to worry about it being bid up or bid down, because a lot of times people get frustrated because they're trying to set in they're trying to put a bid in, but the particular contract price is moving so fast they can't get the bid in at the right price. So a way to get around it is just put in a market order. And what I mean is that you just tell the computer, or really tell your brokerage, I have enough money in my account that where I'm confident that whatever the price is when it goes to get executed, I'm just willing to pay it. And you just got to hope that the price hasn't gone up so fast, right, that you end up paying, what you may think later on is too much for it. But you use this in scenarios where the share price might be moving very up very rapidly. It might be moving down very rapidly. And you're worried about, well, if I play this bidding game, I'm going to be so far out of position, right, by the time I realize that my bid has been rejected. And I don't want to wait. I want to go ahead and just get in on this moving position very fast. So you just put in a market order. So that's one way in which you can dominate the options market auction. Second way you can dominate it is you got to understand is that just because they have an ask price, it doesn't mean that you have to pay it. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make. One of the reasons is that when you come into the market, you don't really understand auctions that well if you haven't been in an auction. So the majority of buying behavior inside the United States is just retail, where the retailer sets a price, you pay it, right? If you want to pay less, you wait for the sale. We don't really exist in the United States in auctions, or where we bargain for stuff. So, outside of maybe you buying a car, maybe you buying a house, you've probably never been in a scenario where people are bargaining and putting bids in and putting in, counter offers and things of that nature. So you may not really understand how to do that. So then you go into the options market and you think because the ask is 100, I have to pay 100. No, it doesn't mean that. You can put in a bid for 85 and you can see if it gets filled, because you may have somebody that has put in a condition inside their brokerage that they're willing to sell that contract for 85 because they just want to get rid of it. Right? So you always got to understand is that you don't necessarily have to pay the ask price. right? You can pay the whatever price you put in. And so you can put in for 85 and you can see whether or not it gets executed. And this works really well if the share price is not moving fast and you're not on a time pressure to buy a contract. So if I'm looking at a contract and I'm like, I don't care if the contract executes today, tomorrow, or Wednesday. I don't really believe that this share price is moving that rapidly, but I just want to get in on a contract. I may play a little bidding game. I may come, 10 points under the ask price and see if it executes. If it doesn't, I may come in 7 points. If that doesn't work, I may come in 5 points. And I may just keep moving it up to see how close can I get to the ask without actually paying the ask price. Because as you start to increase your position size with more and more contracts, those little small increments are going to mean a lot, right? Because we start talking about margin of profit, right? So those small increments are going to mean a lot at the end of the day. Because one of the reasons why I counsel everybody, right, as a beginner trader to try to buy contracts that have very, very tight spreads is because I know a lot of them don't know how to manage that type of situation. So what they a lot of times will end up doing with contracts that have wider spreads is they will end up overpaying for the contract, because the fact that that spread is wide, and what I mean by the spread is wide is that we use the explanation of if the ask is 100, they're bidding 95 and the last price sold was 97. Let's say that in this scenario, the ask is 100, right? And they're bidding 75 and the last price sold might have been 80, right? Well, what a lot of people will do is that they'll just look at the ask price and pay the 100. But, we may be able to come in for 80 like the last guy did. We may also be able to come in for 75. So you really got to understand is that if you don't really know how to manage the situation, well, then look for scenarios where the ask price is 100, right? And the bid is 95, or you got that really, really tight spread. So you're not worried about, well, am I overpaying for the contract? So one way in which you can get around that is you can bid way, way lower than the ask, and then you can see whether or not the market feels it, or do you got to continue to raise your bid up? But sometimes you'll be surprised. Now, on the flip side, when you're selling contracts, I've sold contracts for above the ask. Why? Because I wasn't under pressure to sell the contract at that time. So I may have a situation that's going in my favor, and I may say, you know what? I believe this situation is going to continue to run in my favor over the course of the day. So what I do at the open is I will a lot of times set the contract to sell at, let's say, $10 above the ask. I've sold contracts sometimes $100 above the ask because the situation kept moving in my favor, and I just set that condition up, right? And I do what we call a limit. And a limit means that's the lowest or the highest that you're willing to execute that trade on. Right. So really, really going into the third step, which is to set limit orders. So limit orders mean that is the highest or the lowest I'm willing to execute that trade on. So if I'm getting ready to buy it, and we talked about the contract that the ask is 100. Well, you can set a limit of 100 and tell the brokerage or your order exchange, I'm not willing to pay more than $100 for this particular contract. Same thing when you sell it. Let's say you were looking to sell that contract, but you wanted to sell it at a limit of 95. You would tell your exchange, I'm not willing to sell this contract for anything less than $95. So then therefore, you're not worried about getting underbid or having to execute too low. But you got to understand is that you may have to stay in that situation for an amount of time before the bids go up to match your particular limit. So this is kind of how you dominate. You got to understand that you're in a fluid situation. Now, if you're looking to get right out at that moment, then you just put markets in. If you're willing to get in at that moment, you just put in a market, right? And it'll allow you to execute very quickly. But if you're willing to try to manage the situation a little bit better, you can put in limit orders and tell them, I'm willing to exit or enter at this particular number. And normally they'll get you around that number. A lot of times the computer is not 100% because you're still dealing with a computer. But normally you can get in or get out around that number, right? And then when you're looking at the bid-ask spread, it's an auction-based scenario. So never believe that unless the market shows you, right, that you have to pay what's being asked for, and never believe that you have to sell at what the ask is. So when you're getting ready to sell your contract, just because the market maker's asking for a particular price don't mean that's the price you got to sell it at. You can sell it higher than that if you want to and see if somebody bites on it. Because if the situation is very much moving in your favor, people may want to get into your position so bad that they're willing to pay above the ask again. People do this all the time in every market. You can go into a housing market, right? And a house can be appraised for $100,000. But because that market's so hot, somebody may come in with a bid for 150, right? Happens all the time. So once you really start to understand that you're in a marketplace, and this marketplace is based on an auction-based scenario, and for you to really understand an auction, you may have to go on YouTube and look at videos of auctions and understand how they function. Because an auction is not normal. Most people didn't buy their car from a car auction. They went and bought it from a dealership, in which there is some bargaining going back and forth, but most people don't know how to bargain for a car. So they essentially kind of buy what is on the sticker, right? Without understanding is that there's a lot of wiggle room in the price of that car if you understand how to go in there and approach the situation properly, okay? So you can manage these scenarios once you really understand how an auction-based scenario is set up, how you can manage it properly. And then, like I said, as you start to scale out in contracts, you're going to find out that your savings over your position size is going to be a lot greater, which is going to allow you to increase your profit margin on the back end, which is the reason why we're here, is to always increase our profit. So if you know this video was valuable to you, share it, like it out, let somebody else know about it. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. And if you want to learn more about the highest paid part-time job in the world, options trading program, reach out to me. We're going into 2021. Change your life, try to increase your income, and try to get on top of that as fast as possible. This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, and I'll talk to you later.